I see someone's watching me, so I'll start talking now. I'm putting on my gardening gloves. I love them. Hard to do it with the side with the claw. Should have done this one first. Gardening gloves. One with a claw. I bet you're wondering what the claw is for. I'm missing a claw. I got cheated out of a claw. Oh, no, I didn't. The other claw, I always forget. It's metal and it's meant to cut things. It's actually quite a dangerous claw. Guess what? I'm going gardening. You should come with me. Here's the thing. This is the guideline about thoughtful posts, about digging deeper, about tilling and cultivating soil, not just for yourself, but for your fellow walkers. It is raining in San Diego. It's been raining for a few, off and on, for a few days now. Rained really heavily yesterday and today. And that always inspires me to go out and mess with the soil, put on my aerators and stomp the front field to make sure that all of that water gets into our very dry San Diego soil and doesn't just run off down the driveway and run off down the field. That's a big deal. And it's a great metaphor for what I want to talk to you about today, because this is the question I have been asking. I love these so much. This is the question I've been asking. I would take off the hat. I'm almost afraid to because I don't know if the wig will come off with the hat. But you can't see me really well with the hat, so I will take a risk and take off the hat. We got lucky. Okay, serious business. Here I am with my overalls and my gardening gloves with the claws. And later on, I'm going to put in my aerators. Why? Because we've got to make this soil soft and pliable and workable. I wonder if that has been the problem with the last 4 years since the last election. We have been doing really good work, raining down, but the ground was hard. What we were doing seemed to just run off, and we see it in the numbers. We see it in the 55% of white women on the aggregate, 2% more than in 2016, that voted for Trump. We see it in the numbers of young people who did break for Biden by 3 points. We see it in the erosion in terms of our North Star in almost every single cohort. Was what we were doing falling on barren soil that could not absorb? It occurs to me that we have work to do. We need to prepare and amend the soil so that our trees can grow and so that nutrients will inculcate deep inside. But before we do that with other people, we need to learn how to do that with ourselves. That's important. This is a question that I have asked myself a lot in Lace on Race over the last 3 years, over the last 6 months with the influx, and now in the last 2 weeks leading up to the election and these 5 days since the election actually happened. How much is what I am saying to you going deep and nourishing roots? And how much of it is just running down my driveway, running down my street to be in that big pool of water at the corner of Tarbox and Hilger, where I always wind up going because that stupid little hole has never been patched. Luckily, I drive a Santa Fe. But the point is well taken in my mind. I can give you the best nourishment I can, but if it's not sinking in, if it's not sinking in it will not be effective. And I want it to sink in. One of my video and print mentors, a woman that I deeply respect and admire and do my best to emulate, is a woman named Beth Moore. And she was talking about how she was trying to get knowledge into her head, and that she would just hit herself with the head, over the head with the text. Get it in, get it in, get it in. And she'd pore over the text over and over and over again, looking for new insights, looking for things that she hadn't seen. She'd walk away from the text and then she'd come back. She'd talk about it with other people and then she would come back. She would look at other texts for additional context and then she would come back. And she would do this with a paragraph. No scrolling and rolling for Beth. And so I wonder, in one way, oh yeah, this is important. One way that she knew that she was making progress, I just dropped from 10 to 6. I'm sorry I'm boring, but you know what? This is interesting stuff. So the 6 of you who are sticking around, listen up. She made sure that she wrote about it in her in the journal that she kept, or the notebook that she kept, that was right next to the text. So she would write, and then she'd come back a day or two later and she'd see what she wrote, and it's like, something else. And then she'd talk to someone else. But she made sure that it wasn't just yay when she saw a text she liked, or boo when she saw something that she didn't in a given passage. She would make sure that she was truly understanding it. She would chew that cud, which is exactly what I'm asking you to do when we talk about thoughtful posts. You doing thoughtful and considered and mindful posts is your way of giving yourself the nourishment that you need. That is water raining down on your own orange tree. Let me read what we wrote here. Thoughtful posts. I'm not wearing my readers, so I'm going to see if okay, here we go. Thoughtful posts. They don't need to be dissertations. A paragraph is fine, but try to stay on topic. And if you have a general observation, pivot to race as quickly as you can. And you always can. Our strong expectation is that you will post your own reflections on the material provided and that you will also reply to the comments of at least 2 others. This is what we refer to as our new norms, and we have seen a remarkable deepening of the quality, engagement, and community here since we implemented them. If they really do make a significant difference to your growth in this space and your reflexive ability to lessen and mitigate the harm that you can cause if you only treat this as something that you read and then put down. If you treat it as a work of fiction or a fashion magazine or a shelter magazine or the style section of the New York Times, you are not going to get anything out of it. I spent 45 minutes reading the style section of the New York Times, and I enjoy it. It's fluff. I look at real estate, like those stratospheric apartments in New York City. I look at weddings. I look at what they call vows, where people repeat their vows 25 years later. And while I had a really good time doing it, I couldn't tell you the particulars of any one article that I read. And I read quite a few. I've said it on other posts, but I will say it here. A lot of times people will say, well, I didn't really write anything because I didn't have anything new to say. Everyone had already said it. Everyone had already stolen my thunder. So there was nothing to say. And you won't let me do a heart or an emoji. So I just left. Nah, there's always more. They're watering their trees by doing it. And some of the water is getting over to you, and that's great. But you need to water your own tree. That is to say, you need to do a Beth Moore and get it in. Get it in. Get it in. And the way that you do that is by tricking your brain. And that is one reason why we insist upon comments and not reacts. It's amazing the things that your brain does. We remember different things in different ways. Things get processed in different parts of our brain. Not going to go too deep in the weeds on that, but the fact is that you're reading even when you are doing, yes, and then you leave is different than if you actually read the words out loud. Now it's visual and auditory. So when I'm reading this and I say, our strong expectation is that you will post your own reflections on the material provided and that you will also reply to the comments of at least 2 others, I am actually lighting up. If there was an fMRI, a functional magnetic resonance imaging machine, different parts of my brain would light up. And as I'm contemplating what I just saw, if I'm writing it down, either in a journal or as we do on our computers or our phones, yet another place lights up. Retention and understanding are enhanced. You get to think about things in new ways. And even if you think you're saying the exact same thing that someone else said, you actually aren't. You actually aren't. And this is where you get to water and nurture other people's trees. Because even if I'm just going to pull 2 names out, even if Leonie said something and it resonated with you, it may not resonate with someone else. But if you say basically the same thing, but a little bit different way, well, Claire might go, aha, guess what? You just helped Claire to get it in, get it in, get it in. And then Claire's going to write something. I want to talk a little bit now about the idea, and I'm going to talk about it in a separate post, but particularly when we're talking about saying the same thing a lot, where it looks like people are just doing this great big amen corner. And people have criticized us for that. Nah, I love it. I can actually tell my discernment is pretty good. And I can actually tell when someone is just parroting or when someone really is internalizing and inculcating, and they're coming to the same place, but in a different way. Here's the thing. Right now, even though we're not a one-on-one, a 101 space, we are very inclusive, and we have people who have just come into racial justice work 22 minutes ago. Then we've got people who have been doing racial justice work for 22 years. We have people who know all the concepts and know all the lingo. And then there are people who are going, I am in completely uncharted territory here. I am terrified. Even so, the nurturing and watering of each other's trees is very important. And also, even if you've been doing it, and this is the one thing that people kind of don't like because I've said it more than once, and this is not a new thing. I've been saying it for 35 years. Just because you've been doing something for a long time doesn't mean you do it well. I'm going to say that again. Just because you've been doing something for a long time doesn't mean you do it well. So one of the things that when you're approaching some of the writing here at Lace on Race, approaching other commenters, approaching other commentators other than me and admin and leadership team, is that even though, because a lot of times you can skim something, yeah, I read that. I read that 20 years ago. No, you didn't. The field of racial justice has changed in the last 2 decades. Believe it. And if you took your ethnic studies class in 1978, believe me, you've got a lot to learn. So it's not enough. And it's a little bit, I'd like you to leave some of that arrogance and hubris and you're not the boss of me at the door and approach it with fresh eyes. And approach it with fresh eyes. They say when it comes to looking at academic stuff that you do not see the text as it is. You see the text as you are. But guess what? You're not the same person that you are 2 weeks ago, or 2 months ago, or 2 years ago. So it's always profitable to go back and see the woman that you are now and compare and contrast with the woman or person that you are now. It is amazing to me when that happens. I'm going through all of the pin posts right now at Lace on Race, going through all of the website. I've got pin posts going back from 2018. I've got website stuff going back from the beginning of this year or the end of last year. So almost a year. And I am a different person. I am a different woman. So it is profitable for me to go back and not only read it, but read it out loud if possible, and also write about it. Sometimes in my journal, sometimes here on the page or on the website. Because, and that deepens. There are some things I have to throw away. There are some things I need to add. And when I go back, I'm also going back to more comments. I have been amazed at when I'm going back to some of these posts when people are kind of resurrecting posts and I'm looking at them and I haven't even looked at them in 6 months or a year. And they had 50 comments the last time I looked. Now they have 100 comments. Okay, I'm going to go back. And some of them are multiple comments by the same person. And I can see the growth. I can see the trajectory. Here's another reason. As much as I would absolutely love to have coffee and tacos with each and every one of you, as much as I would love to commune on a deep level in person with every one of you. That's my prayer. And by the way, we're thinking about when this whole COVID mess is over, doing Lace on Race meet and greets. Now that I'm semi-retired, have laptop will travel. So I can go anywhere and I want to see you. But right now, what we have with each other, the way that we create and nurture and maintain and grow deeper in relationship with each other, because you are in relationship with me and you are in relationship with the greater community. The way that we do this is with our words. The more you post and the more thoughtful the post is, the more I get to know you. I know that's scary as hell. One of my favorite authors, Peter Kramer, wrote in one of his books, a great book on relationships. It is unfortunately titled Should You Leave? But it's a great book and I recommend it for everyone. But one of the things that he says is that the need for revealing, the need to see and be seen, the need to be known by the other. If Meleza is listening right now, she's going to love this. This is straight out of Martin Buber. The need to be known is at constant tension with the need to conceal, with the need to hide. And you're absolutely right. The more you write, the more I will know you. My job is to treat the disclosure of you to me gently and well. I hope you feel, I absolutely hope that you feel that I will treat you gently and well, that I have your best interest at heart in alignment with the North Star. Because if I do not treat you gently and well, you won't stick around. And how is that lessening and mitigating the harm endured by Black and brown people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy? And I am also very explicitly saying, it's not in the guidelines, but it very well should be, and maybe we'll amend them, that this admonition, this exhortation, more accurately, is not just for our white cohort. It is for our non-white cohort as well. We all need to learn how to do this work well. Another one of the people that I talk a lot about, Terry Real, and you're going to hear that when we finally get through the guidelines and we can hunker down into Terry Real, is that even though we as a cohort in Lace on Race are better at navigating the lumpy crossings of race and of applied relational ethics than the rest of the world, and I actually believe we are. We really do a good job, believe me. In the last month or so leading up to the election, I have found myself in a lot of different spaces, and I have been trying to pick a judicious word that is filled with kind candor, but that also allows you to know how I feel about it. I have been struck by sometimes the difference between the quality of other posts on websites and Facebook pages and other pages and the quality of our posts. By and large, we rock it. We can do better. Those of you who are just coming into the space, who have been lurking for a while or are coming in fresh, I'm loving it. But the onus is still there. In this week, for example, I have seen a lot of things that would be mitigated if people would read the guidelines. One word drive-by, snark, sarcasm, We'll talk about this later, but third-party resources. We need to find a way to be with each other well. And these guidelines, all of them, not just the one we're talking about today, these guidelines are to keep this space as safe-ish as possible. And later on, we're going to talk about what safe-ish means for new people and for people who have been lurking. But for these purposes, safe-ish is to make this space mask on so that we are as safe as we can be for each other, so that we can tackle topics that are not quite safe. And the thoughtfulness of your post enhances that. I know that this is way different than what has been asked of you before in other spaces. In other spaces, sometimes, a lot of times, white people are asked not to talk at all, just listen and heart and like. That is not here. This is a rehearsal space. This is a lab, which means one word posts is not going to get you where you want to be. And now, more than ever, we need to start being diligent. If 55% doesn't haunt you, I don't know what does. If the fact that out of 10,000 of you, we have 200 to 400 active members and the rest are just scrolling and rolling, or they've forgotten that they've done it, that should concern you. If people are not going deeper and interrogating and confronting themselves so that they can go out and interrogate systems and institutions, that should concern you. The whole point of it is lessening and mitigating the harm that you cause, and not just white people. I added that clause and we're going to start using it. Lessening and mitigating the harm perpetuated. I'll start again. Roll tape. Lessening and mitigating the harm endured by brown and black people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy. That's the systems and institutions and microaggressions that we have learned to inculcate among ourselves. This is not a conversation I want to have deeply in this public forum. One reason that we are going to institute a group for people of color is that I do think that some discussions should not be in the white gaze, but we need to do it better. As Terry Real would say, you do it better than other groups. People of color do it better than white people on the aggregate, but that doesn't mean that you do it as well as you could. If the idea is lessening and mitigating harm for all of us, that means all of us, regardless of ethnicity or of how you identify racially, needs to learn to do it better. We need to learn to speak for effectiveness. We need to learn how to be effective in our speech. It can't just be cathartic. It can't just be finger wagging. It can't just be drive-bys. I want to change hearts and minds. Just like going back to the people that say, everyone says the same thing. Yeah, because there are some things that are just non-negotiable and are not up for debate. We're not going to debate whether or not Black people have full humanity. We're not going to spend hours and hours of bandwidth talking about that. We're not going to talk about the need to recognize what racism is and the fact that racism is an economic construct as much as it is a social one. So there are times when, yes, I do want you to say variations of what I said. There are times when you can get quite expository, actually, but you need to have the fundamentals down first. Going back to the idea of the Lace on Race Cafe, it is the difference between having one of those how-to cookbooks, a very basic cookbook, where there is one that I have in my kitchen. It's from Mark Bittman, and it's literally called How to Cook Everything. And it's very basic. Boom, boom, boom. And especially in baking, it is very much paint by number, no variances. When you get better, you can experiment as to whether or not you use cardamom instead of allspice. You can experiment. What if I cut half of the sugar? You can experiment as to, I'm going to put this in a cold oven and see if the cornbread is denser after 35 minutes. You can do all of that, but you need to know the fundamentals first. That is the difference, by the way, between being a wok or a microwave and a slow cooker. With woks and microwaves, you don't have a lot of room to get it wrong. If you're talking about something that's going to be done in 5 minutes, you do not have a lot of room for course correction. It's goes from raw to tender but crispy to burnt in a matter of minutes. I have seen this with sauces. I have seen this when I'm caramelizing onions. There's the chemical composition that, okay, this is perfect. This is the sweet spot. And then I check my phone for messages, and the next thing you know, it's a burnt, crusty mess in the space of 30 seconds. You need to learn the recipe. You need to learn how to not be distracted, and you need to learn how to get it in, because you're getting it in is foundational. A lot of the work that we do here is cumulative, or I would like it to be. I have been teasing the full Terry Real series for a whole year, but you know why we haven't done it fully? And now I'm going to have to read the damn book again because it's been a year and I'm going to have to research it and do it well before I can present it for you because it's been a year. But one reason that we haven't is because we haven't gotten the fundamentals down. There are still people saying 2 years in, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to do this. I'm still very tentative and scared, and I am never going to learn how to do this well. If we're talking about cookbooks, that's like saying, I still really don't know how to boil an egg. I still really don't know what to do with the pasta water. How can we do a complex sauce if you can't make me rigatoni? We need to learn how to make rigatoni. We need learn how to make perfect, fluffy, scrambled eggs. We need to learn how to do vegetables that are crispy but not soggy. Before we can go on to the more esoteric parts, before we can go to the next level Mark Bittman book that I have to say I've looked at, but it's intimidating. But I am going to look at that cookbook. And you need to learn how to go deeper and farther too. You cannot stay at the pre-primer level of cooking, and you can't stay at the pre-primer level here. I am not a preschool teacher. I respect them. I love them. Thank you for the work you do. But this is not preschool. This is not a 101 space. That's not to say you need to know everything, but you need to come in with the capacity, the volition, and the agency to do this work well, with resilient resolve and reliability and relentlessness. And part of that is thoughtful posts. Again, it doesn't have to be a dissertation. You do not have to do a Lace Watkins and I'm going to stretch it out into 40 paragraphs when 2 paragraphs would do, because I love my words, in case you haven't noticed. But one word isn't enough. Deciding that you don't have anything new to say is a false modesty that actually is the flip side of a certain kind of arrogance. You don't deserve to know what I'm thinking up in my noggin. The only way that we get to learn each other and cleave and connect as a community is if we can see each other on the page. That's what we have. We have to go with what we know, with what we can work with. So I invite you to thoughtful posts. I invite you to allow yourself to be seen. Farmer Lacey, for her part, will treat your shoots and your roots gently, and will nurture them, and will sing Anita Baker songs to them. Yep, or Melissa Manchester songs, The House That Love Built. I'm going to redrop that. It's a beautiful song. The point is that I'm asking you to trust me with your heart and with your fingers and with your mind. I want you to get it in. And the only way is if you help me help you by showing me yourself on these boards with thoughtful and mindful and complete posts. If you are here to do this work well, that means that you are willing to do the work. I'm not asking for an hour. I'm not even asking for half an hour. But I am asking you to risk. And I'm asking you to take the time that it takes to drink a latte, to be seen by me and by your fellow walkers. This is how we're going to roll in the year 2021. And for those of you who want to become on Chef's Table, it will be an absolute requirement. that and you learn how to do so. You will be mentored so that you get to know, but you can also be mentored in an informal way here. So I challenge each and every one of you to go back and comment on at least 3 things today and then make responses to 6 different people. The responses don't have to be long. I really appreciate what you wrote. This resonates with me. I wish you could find something other than this resonates with me. I'm kind of tired of having to read it, but if that's what you got, that's what you got. But I want you to practice because it becomes less daunting as you do. And when you do, you're going to find out that despite what you might have read on bathroom walls, I'm actually a pretty nice person. I actually really, really want you to win. For the sake of lessening and mitigating the harm endured by Black and brown people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy, absolutely, but also because of you. I affirm your being in this space, which is different than other spaces. I affirm your being willing to stay the course. I affirm your being willing to do the work to become less harmful and to actually become a net. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine this? Are you ready? And to actually become a net positive in the lives of brown and Black people. And that's including other brown and Black people, because sometimes we can be funky too. That's why I'm asking. I've already said basically the next guideline, but I'm going to actually hit that guideline separately. That's talking about skill building and lurking and spectating. It deserves its own video and it will get one because I promise that I do commentary underneath each video, so I have to do it. I love you all. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later. Get off of here and comment on at least one, hopefully 2 posts, and comment and respond to at least 2 people per post. 3 would be awesome. Comment on 3. Respond to each. You should be making me sweat. I should be picking up my phone and it's blown up with comments and responses. Learn the fundamentals and then challenge me. But you got to learn how to scramble a decent egg first. You got to learn how to boil rigatoni. Let's get to it.